Good afternoon. You're listening to Gambling with an Edge. Now here are your hosts, Bob Dancer and Richard Munchkin.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. I'm Bob Dancer.
And I'm Richard Munchkin.
Our guest today is sports bettor and analyst Rob Pizzola. Rob, welcome to Gambling with an Edge.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Well, you're quite welcome. Your introduction into advantage playing. You started out as a poker player, is that right?
I did, yes. I grew up during the Chris Moneymaker poker boom, where he won the World Series of Poker. And, you know, being a naturally a mathematical guy, I just fell in love with the game. So I didn't know what I wanted to do out of high school. I ended up playing full-time poker for a year, which I originally loved and then eventually hated.
All right.
So you went to, you got into college and you were doing both stats and computer science. And first of all, I'm curious if you took a stats approach to the poker, in which that would be enough to turn me off of it. But how did the transition happen into sports?
So, yeah, I originally went to college to study economics. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just kind of wanted to follow in my dad's footsteps. He's a chartered accountant, makes good money. I said, you know what, I can probably make a good living if I just go down some sort of path in finance. I absolutely hated that. And after the first year, I eventually dropped out to play poker full-time for a year. I eventually hated that after I was done a year. Just very monotonous, kind of robotic. You just, you know, the life of the game was kind of sucked out in playing in a full-time capacity. So I went back to school, was studying towards a double major in stats and computer science. And at that time, there was Sirius satellite radio was starting to grow. And there was a channel that I used to listen to very regularly, was called Hardcore Sports Radio, which was just a bunch of Canadian hosts who would talk about betting. And at that time I was betting. I used to call in every single day, talk to the hosts. And I did this for over a year before one day I just called in, and it was actually the programming director of the station that picked up and said, hey, you know, would you be interested in an internship here? And I said, yeah, absolutely. I would love to do that. So I was going to school during the day, interning there at night. And it got to a point where I just was eventually offered a full-time job at that radio station before I had graduated college. And I took that full-time job because I'm a huge sports fan. I never even thought that was a possibility to earn a living. Like I didn't consider that as something I could ever earn a living in. So I said, for sure, I'll do that. And I started as a radio producer, eventually moved to an on-air host. And I did that for several years. Absolutely enjoyed that. And, you know, got to watch a lot of sports and talk about sports betting as well.
And this was in Canada?
And what happened then to that job?
So what eventually happened was I was not making enough money, if I'm being completely honest. So I'm a person that's motivated by money. And you can only do so many years where you just feel like you're being underpaid. And it's a very small radio station. It was essentially an affiliate of The Score, which is now blown up in the North American landscape. But I was working for The Score. There's just not a lot of budget in radio. So they were starting to launch something at the time, which was called Score Mobile, which is now just their enterprise app where you can check scores. And there was like a 3-man team, and they had posted for an operations manager. And I was like, you know, I have a background in computer science. I interview pretty well. I'll see if I can actually get this gig. And I ended up getting that. So I moved on from radio to digital within The Score, worked there for several years, eventually became the product manager for that app as well. And I mean, I really enjoyed my time there. It was just great work. I worked with great people. I was still involved in the sports space, just in a very different capacity.
So while you were doing this, were you betting sports? And if so, how good were you?
I was betting sports, and I was losing quite regularly. So I would say I was what's, you know, I would refer to now as just like a coin flipper. I thought I had an edge because I watch a ton of sports. That was just like my only passion was sports at that time. And I think a lot of people fall down the same path where they're like, I watch so much of this league, it should be fairly easy for me to win money betting on this league. But in reality, it's not. Betting on sports is more of a math problem than it is, just being able to dissect the X's and O's of a game. And I learned that, unfortunately, not very quickly. But yeah, all my time at the Score, I was a bettor. Thought I would almost lie to myself in a sense, thinking that I was just unlucky a lot of times, right? And then you just lose for year after year after year, and you eventually have to have a conversation with yourself and say, maybe this isn't luck. Maybe I'm just bad at this, and I need to approach it in a different way. So I've been sports betting since I was 15 years old, but for the vast majority of that, of the time up till now, where I'm 35, I was a losing bettor.
One of the things I tell people is just write it down. Keep track, right? Because if you write down every bet you make, at the end of the year, you can see in black and white whether you're a winning player or not. But it's very easy to lie to yourself if you don't have it written down, so you can say, oh, I think I'm ahead. I can't tell you how many people I talk to who are like, oh, yeah, I'm ahead. but they don't have any, records to back
I think
that
I'm
up.
about even. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great piece of advice, but it's also very challenging, because I will say it was a piece of advice I got in my 20s. And that was actually from my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife. But she was by my side when I was pretty regularly losing money, and she could see this as well. And she used to say to me, like, just track it. I mean, just create a spreadsheet and track all of your bets, and you can actually see whether you should do this or not. The inherent challenge is when you are losing, you no longer want to track. So it's a double-edged sword, right? But it is a great piece of advice regardless. I mean, I do encourage people to do that, because you need to be real with yourself. There's no sense in lying to yourself or stopping. Like, the minute you stop tracking because you're losing too much is probably a great cue or signal for someone to say, I need to not do this anymore, or find a different approach, or they're okay with it, but it's got to be, for recreational purposes.
Well, at least with sports betting, you can write it down when you make the bet before you've lost it. With poker or some other form, you have to wait till it's over. But
right.
Yeah, for me, on writing it down, when if I had a day that I wrote that I won $1,000, boy, I couldn't wait to get home and put it on my Excel spreadsheet. When I had lost $1,000, I wasn't so eager to go do that. So, but it was pleasurable to write down the pluses. The minuses weren't so much fun.
That's one of the inherent challenges, definitely, as a sports bettor, especially knowing that 99% of bettors are probably going to lose in the long run. It's, you just don't want to come to that admission that you can't win at sports betting. I don't know what it is specifically with sports bettors, because, if you're losing money elsewhere, a lot of people will just, they'll stop in whatever they're doing, or so on and so forth. Or let's say they realize they're not good at a specific game. They're no longer going to pursue that. But with sports betting, I think there's an ego that comes with the average sports bettor, because so many of us are consumed in sports. And like I said, you'll watch NFL on a weekly basis and you'll be like, I watch all the games. How can I not win at this? But it's so much more complex than people realize. So I think the admission of not being good or being a losing bettor is just, it's so hard for people to actually get there.
You mentioned there was a lady involved who knew you were a losing player and ended up marrying you anyway. Were your gambling losses a significant issue?
They were when I was younger, so my late teens, early 20s. Once I started realizing that I'm not going to win at this, I really started to level off. I did it more for entertainment purposes. I did not have the expectation of winning going in. And then I have eventually just stopped and went cold turkey for a while, saying to myself, it's been 10 years roughly of losing at sports betting. Let me see if I can figure out some other approach to win at this. I was reading a bunch of books on statistical modeling at that time, and I started to approach things from a math perspective. And that's when I was just like, really having fun with it. It was just kind of a hobby for me to assign probabilities to each team in baseball games. I would share those probabilities to Twitter every day. Um, kind of grew my following by doing that as well. And at that time, I actually didn't need the rush of actually betting the games. It was more so, this is what my model says. These are what the bets would have been. And I kind of got a rush just out of tracking them, rather than actually having to put money down and substantiate that opinion. So I took kind of like a whole new point of view on it. And yeah, it really helped, really helped me get out of a bad state. I think just still being able to, it's kind of like fake betting in a way, right?
Paper trading.
Right. Paper trading is perfect way to describe it. And that really worked for me because I still felt like I had skin in the game because I was trying to build out something that would help me win in the long run. But if I lost, it didn't really affect my livelihood or my day to day. Like I wouldn't stay awake in bed a couple hours a night thinking about games and losses and so on and so forth. So that was a big pivotal moment for me. In terms of the girlfriend, she was always encouraging me to stop. I mean, she could see that I was having anxiety and so on and so forth. So I owe a lot of it to her, and her advice, and just ultimately, I would say even giving me ultimatums at times, which was honestly really helpful in the grand scheme of things.
But so after a certain amount of paper trading, you must have reached a point where you said, wait a minute, if I had actually bet this, I'd now be winning, right?
Correct. So now I'm talking to other people and I'm like, I think I have this winning model and so on and so forth. And, they're asking the right questions, which is, well, how many games have you tracked? Like, is this something, 50 games? Is it 500? So on and so forth. And I'm like, yeah, it's just a season. It's not really a huge sample yet, but I do feel like I'm onto something. At this point, I'm still, even though I've been betting for a large portion of my life, I'm still very much an amateur in that, like, I don't know what closing line value is, right? So I'm just tracking my wins and losses. I have no idea what, the concept of the market working in your favor, working against you, that doesn't dawn on me at all. It wasn't really until I started getting people sending me direct messages on Twitter that were asking to have calls with me and saying, like, we've been following your baseball probabilities every day. We think you have something worthwhile. Would you be interested in having a conversation? So I really had no way to verify what I had was worthwhile or not until other people started to take notice. And that's kind of when I had that light bulb moment of like, okay, I do have something here. Like, there's a lot of people, I had people competing to put me on different free rolls that were offering me bigger bets with no risk on my end. For me, as someone who's lost betting my whole life, this is extremely appealing. It's like, okay, now I can bet the outcomes of my model risk-free. And I had different groups going back and forth, offering me one-upping the other one till I got, at that time, a very large bet for me on a risk-free free roll. That was the kind of the turning point for me where it's like, okay, I'm onto something here.
And so that's how you started betting, was basically just taking the free roll, but you are the originator providing the stats for whoever that was doing the betting for you.
Correct. So the first free roll I ever got, I actually got stiffed on that payment. So over the course of 3 or 4 weeks, I had accrued I had won a decent amount of money. It came time to settle, was getting a lot of excuses, so on and so forth. So when that happened, it started to dawn on me, well, it's dawned on me that this is quite a scummy space. Like, I don't know who I'm dealing with. These are just anonymous people on the internet. So I really have to do my due diligence a little bit better next time. But then I started reaching out to the other people who had originally been offering me deals that I had passed up on. And I reached out to someone who is Chicago based, and I let him know what was going on. And he was just like, we know who you're dealing with. Stop dealing with him. We'd rather move your action, so on and so forth. And I started working with another group, and that was extremely successful. It was a really good partnership. And not only because I was getting a good bet and obviously making some money, but also I was being mentored along the way there. Like I was, I was in interaction with people on a daily basis, learning all sorts of things, asking questions, getting answers. Like this was a really good situation for me. So yeah, I just ended up connected with the right people over Twitter, like over social media. If social media didn't exist, I probably am still working a day job or something like that, which would be totally fine. But I owe a lot of what I have to just, the Twitter community, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And did they then ask you to stop posting your probabilities on Twitter now that they were betting for you?
That was part of the deal. Yes.
Yeah,
That
I
was
would
the
think.
immediate. Yeah, it was the immediate. Like I didn't even know. So the conversation I had, I won't name his name. He likes to keep a low profile, but a good friend of mine now in Chicago. The first conversation I ever had with him is like, he basically explained to me what was going on. He would say, "You post your probabilities to Twitter every day, and the screen is going to move within a minute of you posting those probabilities." I had no idea what that meant. So I'm like, "Can you explain that to me?" And he's saying someone is betting your picks, your plays, your probabilities as soon as you post them on a daily basis. And he's like, basically, that's a great indicator to you that you have something that's worthwhile here, and we will compensate you for that. However, we no longer want that to be public. So it was definitely terms of the deal. I had to post a Twitter announcement saying I would no longer be posting my daily probabilities, so on and so forth. But I mean, that's just the nature of the business. I completely understand it. And yeah, that was a turning point in my life for sure.
The only game you've talked about so far is Major League Baseball, which is 3 or 4 months a year. Do you do other games at other times of the year, or are you a baseball specialist only?
Funny enough, baseball is now the only major North American league that I do not bet. So I got my start with baseball. I did very well. And then it seemed like almost overnight lost my edge in baseball. I think a lot of people were just all doing the same thing at the same time, and it just became very difficult to beat that market. I predominantly make my living off of betting hockey and football nowadays. Those are the sports that I personally originate myself. I do work with a number of partners, so I do have access to other, to good plays in other sports, whether that's NBA, college basketball, even some more niche leagues. But predominantly, I am betting NHL and NFL. And then I use the summer to kind of recover, relax. I do a lot of golfing in the summer. I did this full time for 3 years straight where I kind of like didn't even really take a day off, and it eventually just weighs on you. So I scrapped baseball. I said, I'm done with this. The returns aren't there. And now I focus predominantly on hockey and football.
You said NFL, not college football?
Yeah, so I tried to do both at once. I just found it very overwhelming. I do think that with NFL, there's kind of like a subjective layer on top of my modeling that I like to use as well. I just feel like I have to give it all to NFL and be in tune with everything that's going on with the market. Knowing who might bet what at certain times is just as valuable as actually what I want to bet. So like bet timing is very key. So I find that if I'm spread too thin during football season, the NFL work is going to suffer. A lot of people always say like, I'll book anyone in the world that's betting NFL minus 110, so on. It's the toughest sport to beat. I personally don't find that. I've had a lot of success now. This is 5 years running that I've been profitable in the NFL. I think it's just, I can't exactly figure it out, but I think it's a combination of having good numbers, also knowing when to bet, where to bet, who to bet with, so on and so forth, that I don't think I could keep up with college football and do NFL as successfully.
So do you need to know where to bet since somebody else is doing the betting for you, or are you now doing your own betting?
So someone else is, for NFL, we're looking to cross book as much as possible. So what that means is every time you place a bet, you're placing a bet at a vig, right? That's where the sports book has an edge. Now, if the Cowboys are playing the Eagles and I like the Cowboys, and I know that there's another bettor out there that likes the Eagles, why are we both going to go bet into minus 110 when we could just bet with each other type of thing at no vig? So I work with many partners in the NFL, other big groups, where we will often go to each other to look to get a bet with one another at a Vig-free price. I'm very price sensitive in the NFL. I think it's extremely important to be price sensitive when it comes to betting, period, not just the NFL. But we do a lot of that. So that's me initiating a lot of the conversations. That's not somebody going and making a bet on my behalf. Now, there are times where people will go and make a bet on my behalf. They'll carve out a percentage of that bet for me. They get to keep a percentage of that bet, and so on and so forth. But it's for me, for NFL, I'm looking to fill a significant position on a game at the cheapest price. And that involves a lot of work on my end. Whereas in some other sports, I'm maybe not betting as much, or it might just be, there might not be those crossing opportunities on a daily basis in a daily sport, for example. And honestly, one of the challenges is anytime you're crossing with someone, you're also giving them information as to what you like. They can now profile you in upcoming weeks. They might go try to bet out ahead of you, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of things to process there. But yeah, essentially what I'm looking to do is build a large position at the cheapest price possible.
But if you like the Eagles and I like the Cowboys, and we agree to this Vig-free bet, how confident are you that I'm going to pay you when I lose?
So that's just built up confidence over years and years of dealing with certain people. The reality is, as soon as you don't pay me, you're cut off. You're always going to have some sort of relationship that starts from scratch. Typically, you're going to have someone that vouches for someone else. I've dealt with this person before. He's good, so on and so forth. But I'm trying to establish trusted relationships, people that I know will pay. There's always a risk involved in that in sports betting. Unless you're betting in a regulated market, you are at risk of not getting paid, whether that's offshore, PPH, or just through other people. And you kind of just deal with that as it comes. But when you do notice people are paying you and they're paying you quickly and they're not, postponing payments for months and so on and so forth, you want to deal with that person more. You establish trust with them, you work with them more. And that's to both bettors' benefits, really. Even if one is consistently beating the other, there's still a benefit for that other bettor in doing that, because they essentially lose less in the process by betting Vig-free.
We went through this same thing in backgammon, Bob. You play somebody, you don't know if you're going to get stiffed, but over time you learn who you can trust, etc. But the thing that would be scary to me is you're betting against another sharp. And when suddenly you realize he's on the opposite side of the game as you, that seems like a scary proposition.
It definitely is. There's certain people I don't want to be opposite of regularly. And we start to notice that if we are consistently opposite of certain people, I don't want to say it's back to the drawing board, but we try to come together and figure out why that's consistently happening, why they might be high or low on certain teams, so on and so forth. So yeah, there is an element to that. But I mean, on a weekly basis, if I take 20 sharp NFL groups, let's say, and I give them a game Vig-free, let's use the Cowboys-Eagles example, it's extremely rare that you're going to get more than 15 that like one side of that game. It's pretty evenly distributed, and yet all these groups somehow find a way to win over time. So it's concerning at first, but the more and more you do it, especially if you're having success, it becomes less and less concerning as that happens. So if I was consistently losing against certain groups, I would just stop dealing with them, or I would start to, listen, the way that the world works is access to information is helpful for a lot of people, right? And I've seen this happen before with me. So this is a 2 years ago, I was dealing with someone where we were consistently getting the best of him pretty regularly. So what I noticed was starting to happen is he wanted to reduce his bet sizes, cross with us. He was basically just paying to get access to what I liked in the game, and then he would go and bet it himself, type of thing. So you have to be aware of what's happening. This is why it's just so important for me to always be in tune with what's going on in the market, right? It's like, okay, I asked this person for this game. They didn't respond to me for 5 minutes, and then it moved across the entire screen. There's a very decent chance that we should not be sending information to this person again, type of thing. So, yeah, there's always concern when you're dealing with other good bettors, but when your results are good, it becomes less concerning.
All right, we're going to take a brief break. We're going to have some commercials. We will come back and talk to Rob Pizzola, including about BetStamp, which is an organization he's involved with. The South Point has more than 10,000 games returning at least 99%. This is more such games than anyone else has. To celebrate the upcoming South Point 400 NASCAR event, the September promotion is earning City Lights Moonshine. You can earn up to 3 bottles weekly, Sunday through Saturday, excluding the days of September 18th to 20th, by earning 1,200 points on video poker or slots. You keep the points. Different mix of moonshine flavors this year than they had previously. This year, you can choose among bar candy, key lime, lychee, orange, original, and plum.
If you're serious about card counting, the Blackjack Apprenticeship membership is a great way to learn, train, network, and get the resources you need to succeed. We've had quite a few guests on Gambling with an Edge who exclusively trained and got their start through Blackjack Apprenticeship. Check out their website at blackjackapprenticeship.com. They have member forums, training software, and guides to help you learn. That's blackjackapprenticeship.com, and you will find a link in the show notes.
Videopoker.com is the best place to play lots of games. If you sign up for the Gold membership, $8.95 a month or $79.95 a year, this allows you to get correction on most of the games. The game of the week is Wheel Poker with Quick Quads. This is 7 coins per line, which is one extra for the wheel and 1 extra for the quick quads. You get a wheel spin every time you get a natural 4 of a kind or a quick quad, and the averages, the wheel spin averages 157.5 coins each time. The double-double bonus version at the South Point returns 99.8% and is available for triple play and 5-play quarters, meaning $5.25 a play or $8.75 a play. This is a comfortable price range for a lot of players. The strategy may be worked out using the wizardofodds.com video poker strategy calculator, which is the only quick quad strategy calculator I know about where you can input a pay schedule. This calculator is accurate and it's free if you're online. That's a very attractive combination.
If you're interested in getting an edge at sports betting, then unabated.com is a great resource for you. Founded by frequent Gambling with an Edge guests, Captain Jack Andrews and Rufus Peabody, unabated.com is designed for both new and experienced sports bettors. Their real-time odds screen, tools, and calculators take a lot of the guesswork out of trying to quantify your edge. There's plenty of free education and instruction to help you along your journey to become a sharper sports bettor. You can currently take advantage of a 7-day free trial to decide if premium membership at unabated.com is right for you. I just want to add, we're very happy. Unabated is our newest sponsor, and we're really happy to have them aboard.
All right, we're back with Rob Pizzola. Tell us about BetStamp.
All right, so the quick elevator pitch is that it's a betting utility that is designed to manage all of your betting within one app. So from the process of going out to finding a bet, to then tracking that bet, to then analyzing your historical results to see where you can improve, to then potentially finding other good bettors in the space, BetStamp has it all. So in terms of line shopping, I preach this. It's something that's very valuable to me, obviously getting the best price. It's very weird to me because people are very price sensitive in their day-to-day lives. But when it comes to sports betting, it's completely out the window for most people. I always laugh when, the price of gas, right, has skyrocketed over the last year. And I have an intersection very close to me that has a gas station on all four corners. And I always laugh when I drive by and I see one of the lines is just like out into the street because the gas is 5 cents cheaper. People want to save a few bucks, so they'll line up for half an hour. But in sports betting, people just find one book. They continuously bet into minus 110, and that gives you a very, very tough chance to profit in the long run. So at its core, I do like to say that BetStamp is the Expedia of sports betting, where essentially before you place a bet, you should just go find what sportsbook has the best price. It saves you, the app itself will save you a lot of time from having to manually open up every sportsbook in your region. Just a quick, effective way to become a better bettor.
How do you monetize this?
So we're an affiliate marketer. What that means for people out there is that we get our revenue, we monetize by sending traffic to sportsbooks. So if a player clicks a banner to a sportsbook through BetStamp and deposits into that sportsbook, BetStamp is paid a commission. I want to make it abundantly clear that we're paid what's called a flat commission, a CPA, as it's termed in the industry, for a deposit. We do not take revenue share deals. So I'm not incentivized to send a player to a sports book, have them lose more money so that BetStamp makes more money. That's not what I'm about. However, we do have to figure out a way to monetize, and especially in Canada, Ontario, where I live, where sports betting is growing massively. There's 26 regulated books in market right now. Is just an opportunity to actually make some decent money in the short term. So we are an affiliate marketer. We get paid by sending sportsbooks traffic. I am very abundantly familiar with problem gaming. I'm not out here to create problem gamers. This is why it was very important for me to be involved with an app that I use on a daily basis. Quite literally have my BetStamp odds screen open up in front of me every hour of the day. And I feel that is a utility that if people actually use regularly, could win at sports betting.
We should point out you do not send people to offshore books. These are only, if you're in the United States, it only sends you to legal books within your state.
Correct. And the reality is the regulated legal books would not work with us if we were sending traffic to offshore books. They would be in trouble. So yes, we do show odds for offshore sports books. Again, I'm a price sensitive guy. You can make the decision on where you want to bet, whether that's at a regulated book, legal book, or offshore. I would suggest you bet legal as much as possible because you will get paid if you win money through a legal route. But however, we do give the people the option of customizing the app to display odds however they want to see them displayed, picking just the sports books they bet at, including all options in their region, including offshore or just the regulated ones, so on and so forth. But we predominantly deal with legal sports books, and we only affiliate traffic to legal sports books.
Now, I live in Nevada. I don't really care what sports books are offered in Canada. How does your product help me?
When you sign up for a BetStamp account, you'll be prompted to input what state you're in, or to just share your location so that we can determine which state you're in. And then we customize the app or personalize it, I would say, for you. So if you're in Nevada, you would see sports books that are available in Nevada. If you're in New York, you're going to see sports books that are available in New York. You can always change this again via settings and decide what sports books you want to display and customize it in your own way. But it's important for us to give you an app that's actually useful for you based off of your location. So it is, there's a little bit of AI built in the background to customize the app for you.
So if I'm in Nevada, it shows Nevada. If I jump on a plane and fly to Denver, will it automatically know my location and adjust it? Or do I have to tell it now I'm in Colorado?
So if you, when you signed up for your account, if you did share your location, it will know that you're in Colorado and it will adjust it. But if you had originally just selected that you're in Nevada, you'd have to manually change that, which is just a couple clicks away, pretty easy to do. But for the most part, it will adjust based off of your actual current location.
Now, this may not be an issue anymore, but in the old days, there were often problems with online casinos sometimes refusing to pay. And in the legal jurisdictions, this seems to be less and less, although occasionally it does seem to happen where they will delay payment for some bogus reason of some sort. If somebody goes through your app and has this kind of problem, do you get involved as an advocate for the player?
We do. So we've had this happen on a few occasions, not to anything extreme where someone wins a jackpot and the casino refuses to pay or so on and so forth. But we do have a Twitter account, which is @BetStamp. The DMs are open, direct messages are open on that account. And we do occasionally have people reach out to us saying that, hey, you guys advocate for this sports book. This is what they are doing to us or doing to me. And then on our end, we do champion for that player. Where we will go to the sports book. We specifically have contacts within every sports book that we deal with and say, hey, one of our players is saying this. Can you let us know what's going on here? At times, we've actually threatened to remove sports books from our app as well if they didn't get situations sorted. So we do advocate for the player. I think that's important. With that said, there is always a sportsbook side to every story as well. So sometimes they'll come back to us and say, well, this player is committing fraud. They've created 8 accounts. It's against our terms of service. So you do have to get the full picture sometimes. But we do try as much as we can to help players solve problems that are outstanding. A lot of them tend to be with suspended accounts for reasons that, frankly, a lot of the sports books are not great at communicating with players as to why an account gets suspended or why something is triggered within the account. So oftentimes we do have to get to the bottom of that. But I would say, in my experience in this space, it's certainly been improving over the last year or so.
Does BetStamp make picks or sell picks or suggestions?
The answer is no, but there's some caveats here. So BetStamp is a free app to use. You create an account, it's free. You don't pay anything. We don't charge you on a monthly basis. We do have a verified buy and sell pick marketplace. So I'll explain that for a second. Anyone who comes onto BetStamp can create a public profile where they track all of their picks. And what we do as an application is we verify those picks. So if someone were to come into our app and start logging a bunch of plays, Dallas Cowboys -3 at DraftKings, as soon as they log that play, what our app is going to do is actually go to DraftKings API, see if Cowboys -3 is a real line. If it is, we stamp that with a verification. If it's not, the play doesn't get verified. So over time, somebody can build up a verified profile, a public profile where if someone goes to their account, they can see all these verified plays over time. Now, anyone within the app can post a pick package, a buy or sell pick pack, a pick package that someone can buy. I'm not an advocate for other people buying picks. I do talk about this a lot. With that said, there are people that are going to buy picks regardless. What we're trying to create in the space is a place where there's full transparency. Like, this is not where we're marketing on behalf of someone who's selling picks. It's just a spot where a pick buyer can go through someone's complete verified betting history and make an informed decision on whether they should be buying those picks or not, rather than succumbing to marketing tactics of so-and-so is 12-1 in his last 13 plays, or, all the common tactics that are used in the space. So we do not sell picks. We do have a platform where people can sell picks. And we do allow the buyers to do their complete due diligence on the pick sellers, which I think is unique in this space, because it's very rare that you're going to go to a pregame or wager talk or whatever sites that are out there and get a legitimate history of the people that are selling plays on there.
So it's kind of part social media, part betting. I mean, odd screen type thing, right? I mean, it sounds like a social media aspect to the app.
For sure. So one of the most interesting things I think about our product is that people use it in so many different ways, right? There's a lot that we offer, and some people will use it exclusively for line shopping. Some people will use it exclusively as a bet tracker. I know a person who uses it exclusively to find other winning bettors in the space so that they can just set notifications anytime a winning bettor tracks a play, get a notification, I can go bet it myself. There's all sorts of different ways to possibly use the app to benefit you. And we don't see a ton of consistency. I mean, there's just some people who are more interested in using it as a line shopper. Some are more interested in finding other bets to make, and so on and so forth. If there was consistency in the way that someone was using it, if we noticed 90% of people are just tracking their bets and not doing anything else, we would make it a bet tracker. But because there's so many people interacting with it in different ways, we've kind of just offered all of these different options to people to explore. And I think that's what makes the app successful.
How long has it been out?
So just over 2 years now. I joined BetStamp in April of 2021. I invested my own money into the product. I worked at the Score as a product manager. I'm very passionate about good technology and good products in the space, but I also wanted to be involved in something that I would personally use on a daily basis. So I invested in BetStamp because I was using BetStamp for 6 months prior to joining. And I just thought, this is a great utility. It's actually helping me with my betting. Should be great for a casual bettor or a pro. There's something for everyone there. So going on just over 2 years as a business now, and I've been involved for just over a year.
So if I go in and I look at somebody's bets, can I sort them? I mean, let's say I find a guy and it says he's 53.7% winners, and I go in and I say, I only want to see his NFL bets or only his hockey bets or whatever. Can I do that?
You can. You can analyze any single public bettor in the space. So we have an analysis tool that will break down his record by sport, closing line value on that. They'll show you his record by sportsbook as well, which I think is important to look at, because there might be some people who are beating recreational books. There might be people that are beating sharp books. Those need to be treated differently. So we do have a full analysis on every single bettor that you can utilize in order to determine what you want to do. You can go through their bet history. So oftentimes what happens with bet tracking tools or with, let's say, the tout industry is a tout will go 0-2, and then they'll create a 5-unit play and they'll win that, and they'll market themselves as +3 units because the units just don't even matter to them. If someone were to do that with BetStamp, you could very easily see that. Someone's betting $50 a play. Now all of a sudden they have a $1,000 bet that won. That's clearly skewing their record. So we give you the ability to essentially do a full due diligence on every bettor in the space. It's completely transparent and does not allow for anyone to be skewing their records in any way.
Now, if I'm using it just as a tracker, do my bets get verified and made public, or I have to opt to make my bets public?
You can create a private profile where it's just for your own personal use, or you can create a public profile, which can be seen by anyone that's using BetStamp. If you do create a public profile, you can opt to hide your picks until games start, so that if you didn't want someone to follow you in real time, but still be able to see that you're a winning bettor, you can hide your picks till game starts. So we do have a number of options. In some cases now we're working with books where we have something called auto sync, where essentially you wouldn't have to go to the book, place a bet, then come back to BetStamp and track it. You just place the bet at the book and it will auto sync into our app. So we're trying to get more and more books on board and doing that to encourage, some people just don't want to track because they think it's too time consuming. Why do I want to place a bet and then track it afterwards type of thing? So now we're working on solutions to allow people to have their bets tracked in real time.
Other than if you're a tout, I don't understand why people would want their bets public.
Yes. So here's one of the reasons, and we see this a lot in the space. We do get like prominent media personalities who just want to show that they are actually winning bettors, or actually they don't even care to show that they're winning bettors. They just want the element of transparency, which I think is important. They want people to be able to look into their history and decide whether, they want to tail a pick or fade a pick or whatever, so on and so forth. Not that I would encourage fading people's picks or whatever, but there are just people out there that want to be transparent. And honestly, I'm all for that. The one thing that bothers me about the sports betting content space is when people misrepresent themselves. So you have an audience of 10,000 viewers, and you're telling them to go bet something. They should be able to know whether or not your opinion is worthwhile or not, in my opinion. Now, some might disagree with that, but I think we see a lot of situations nowadays where people misrepresent themselves as winning bettors, and they do a lot of harm to people who are following them because they have a large following. So what we're seeing more and more now is people that just want to be transparent and honest with others. And I think that, this is huge, and it's where the space needs to be at some point. Personally, I see content creators in the space that will frankly tell their entire audience that they're a losing bettor. There's one person in specific. His name is Trent. He goes by Book It Trent on Twitter. Has amassed a following of 100,000 people on Twitter. Definitely a losing bettor. Does not hide from it. Produces content that he is a losing bettor. Puts out parlays every day, and people still bet them regardless. Because what I'm noticing in the space is there's a desire to be part of a community in sports betting as well, and just ride with a lot of people and win with a bunch of people or lose with a bunch of people together. But I appreciate the fact that he's at least upfront with others rather than coming across as someone who says, tail my picks. This is my record. I'm 58% in the NBA, and just frankly, flat out lying to people. So I am noticing a bit of a cultural shift in social media now, where there are a number of people that are willing to admit that they might not be a winning bettor or the best bettor, that just want the element of transparency and want people to know that they're real.
Well, that's really interesting, the idea of community, because I find that is absolutely true. People are thirsting for that. So do you have can you DM other people or communicate with them through the app?
Not as of now, but you can connect your social accounts to the app. So what we've honestly found is a lot of people will just reach out on a personal level now. We have someone that goes by Clive Bixby within BetStamp, who he has mentioned to me in the past, and I've had him on my own personal podcast, that he's just gotten so many messages from people who are other BetStamp users that just reached out to him on Twitter. And he's been able to build some networking and relationships through that. So there is no direct DM integration within our app itself, but we do find that people are going to other platforms, finding those bettors, building up their own communities, which is, something that I'm kind of proud about.
In the tout world, in addition to somebody's regular picks, they frequently will have a pick of the century, which they seem to come up with every week. Is there any way in your app to indicate the level of confidence somebody has in a particular pick, whether this is an ordinary pick or a special pick of some sort?
The risk amount. So the way that our app works is we're essentially tracking real wagers. Now, a tout might come onto our platform. We have lots of touts on our platform, people that make their living from selling plays, and they'll create a BetStamp account and they'll just track everything as a $1 wager. And then if something is a larger pick, 10-star bet of the millennium, it turns into a $10 wager, right? or stuff like that. So we're dealing with real monetary amounts. That doesn't mean that if you're tracking in our app and creating a public profile, you have to put your real amounts in. You can track based off of any unit scale, right? We all know that. But that's sort of the indicator for us is, if I'm going through somebody's pick history, I can see that, okay, they're betting 3 games at $1 today, and they're betting 1 game at $2. That game is they have more confidence in that game. It's a larger play. So that's how we indicate that within the app.
If I wanted to create 23 different pick accounts on BetStamp and only publish the 3 that are winning so far this year, can I do that?
So there's a possibility that you can, but we work very hard on making that something that you can't. I don't want to go into the details of the logic we use on the back end to find accounts that are multi-accounting or so on and so forth. But we do have a lot of practices and technology in place to prevent that from happening. That's very obviously the one workaround in any sort of verification system is just being able to multi-account. We recognize that fairly early, and we do our best to prevent that from happening. Can I say that it's 100% foolproof? Everyone on there has a single account? No, I can't. But we do come across situations where we are able to stumble upon someone that is multi-accounting. We figure out how, and then we implement a change. So I think we're at a pretty good level now of preventing that relative to where we were a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Will it ever be 100%? I hope so. I can't guarantee that, but I would say probably, I feel very confidently that we're at it's extremely difficult to multi-account on our platform right now.
One thing that might be helpful is to have just a big banner that says you need X amount of picks before the winning is significant.
That's a great idea. So it's we're exploring different ways to do exactly that are not as I'll call your suggestion abrupt, like just right in your face. But potentially like an algorithm in the background that can determine someone's level of betting, and then maybe until they get to a certain amount of plays, we can't determine a level yet, or something along those lines. But I agree with you. One of the most challenging things about running a company like BetStamp is the lack of education in the space. Because not only do we have to offer a product which will help you be a winning bettor, most people do not know how to use those tools to become a winning bettor. So we have to educate on that. So we have to educate on how to look through someone's profile and like red flags. If I see someone has an average play of, like I said, $50, and all of a sudden they're putting in $1,000 plays, there's a decent chance that they're chasing losses to try to get out of the red. That's in terms of their public record or so on and so forth. So we're actively working on a bunch of educational stuff as well. But I do agree, that's a good suggestion. There's always people that even if you present them with data, they might misconstrue it, they might misread it, they might not know how to read it. So we actively put out content on how to use our tools.
Do most of your users use pseudonyms or use their real names?
Mostly pseudonyms. So when you sign up for an account, you do get to pick a nickname. What we've noticed is most people just don't want to go by their real names. A lot of this space is still taboo, I would say, where people just don't want their real names out there associated with gambling. So we do allow people to show their real names if they want to, but the vast majority do choose a nickname to go with.
If someone wanted to get in touch with you, what would be the best way for them to do it?
I would say we're very active on social media. We do have an email directly within the app. If someone wanted to email a BetStamp support, you could do that from directly within the app. But my personal DMs at Rob Pizzola on Twitter are always open. I will respond to anyone. Sometimes it'll take me days because I do get a lot of messages, but I personally will respond to anyone, as will the BetStamp account within 24 hours on any social media platform as well. So If anyone does have any questions, they want any clarification, we do get tons of feedback. We've incorporated so many user suggestions over the last year, which have been great suggestions, which have significantly improved our app. Please do provide us with that feedback. It is immensely helpful. And at the end of the day, we are building a product for other bettors. I view betting in one light. My partners view it in another light. Some of our employees view it in a different light. We're trying to make this as appealing to every person as possible. Have something available for every different type of bettor. So all feedback is welcome for sure.
Very good. Thank you, Rob Pizzola. You had an interesting story, interesting background, and BetStamp is a product that we have not had one quite like that before. Thank you for describing it to us.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me on.
At the end of the show, we have a recommended section where the host and sometimes the guest give a recommended about something that they like. Now, Richard indicated before the show he has a drab, dreary life, and he has nothing to recommend this week. Has that changed
Well,
since
I just want to tell people I'm still binging this show Alone that I talked about weeks ago. There are just too many seasons of it.
All right. My recommended is author Stephen Frey, F-R-E-Y. Perhaps pronounced Fry, perhaps pronounced Frey, I'm not sure. He writes thrillers, and he has several series, similar to David Baldacci. I just finished his Christian Gillette series, where Gillette is head of his multi-billion-dollar hedge fund and has a number of powerful enemies of various stripes. Most thrillers have good guys and bad guys. Fry's books, the good guys aren't all good, and the bad guys aren't all bad. This is escapist reading. Or listening if you get the audio tapes, listen while you're driving like I do. There are a number of strategic maneuvers described, though. Many are new to me that are well worthy of an AP having in his or her repertoire, which gives me a good excuse to waste my time on escapist reading because really I'm getting a benefit out of it. All right, Rob Pizzola, do you have any recommended for our audience today?
I'm going to give out two recommendations, one in the sports betting space and one in the non-sports betting space. I think it's extremely challenging for people who are looking to get educated in sports betting to get educated. Nowadays, if you Google sports betting terms, you're going to get a lot of results from sports books and big affiliates and not necessarily great educational tools. I would strongly suggest a book called The Logic of Sports Betting. It's by Matt Davidow and Ed Miller. It's a pretty light, easy read, but for someone who doesn't, like, even if you think you know a lot about sports betting, there's probably a lot to be gleaned from here that will be eye-opening for you. I do think that that's an excellent read. Anyone should check that out. My non-sports betting recommendation.
Before you go on with your non, which we
ahead.
definitely get to, Matt and Ed have been guests on this show. Richard and I are fans of that book. They contribute to the Unabated website. I don't know if contribute's the right word, but their output on their inline gaming is included in the information you can get on Unabated. We're big fans of them and highly endorse your recommended on that.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to meet Matt several times. He's actually just one of the brightest minds I've ever been around, and that doesn't even include just the sports betting space. He's just a super smart guy, and I still regularly read that book. By the way, I've read it a handful of times. It's just one that I constantly have. So highly recommend that. In terms of non-sports, there's a show that I watched recently on Apple TV. It's called Severance. It is extremely unique. I don't even know how I would describe it. It's some sort of like sci-fi psychological thriller. The acting is absurdly good. Patricia Arquette, John Turturro. It's it's just really, really good. I don't even want to spoil anything. I'll just give it a little teaser. Directed by Ben Stiller. It starts a little bit slow and then really picks up. And I don't know how, if you're one of those people that does binge shows, you'll get through it in a day because it's that good. It's just one of those that's almost impossible to end an episode and not start the next one. So highly recommend Severance. It's one of the best TV shows I've seen in a long time.
Wow, that makes me wish I had Apple TV. You really shocked me when you said Ben Stiller directed it, because usually he does comedies.
I know, it's very unusual, and honestly, he does such a great job. Yeah, I feel like I would be doing a disservice if I gave away any more information about it. It's just better off to go in knowing nothing. And there's a lot of twists and turns, and it's very intriguing.
Also, just before we go, briefly, you mentioned you have a podcast. So what's the name of your podcast? And we'll link to it in the show notes.
Yep, the podcast is called Circles Off. It's more of a sports betting educational podcast. A lot of the stuff is evergreen. We typically will explore some educational topics. For example, how to live bet the NFL as an example, and give away some tips and tricks and stuff like that. And then we consistently do have some guests on in the space, whether those are professional bettors, bookmakers, up and coming bettors. We try to, just really mix it up. So it's called Circles Off, and you can download that anywhere that you would typically be able to stream audio.
Very good. Thank you, Rob Pizzola. Thank you, Richard. Go out and hit lots of royal flushes, everybody. Good day.